We'll just get underway. Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai haere mai ki tēnei hui. Welcome to this Infrastructure Committee meeting. It's lovely to be here for the first meeting of the triennium on the 11th of February. I'd just like to remind everybody that this meeting is being live streamed, so just be mindful to have your phones turned on silent or turned off. And we'll aim to take a break, well, hopefully finish by lunchtime so that we can have a break before our afternoon session. I would like to welcome Stavros Michael to my table up here in place of the CE as he is presenting at another meeting. So this morning I'd just like to start us off with a karakia. If I could ask Her Worship to start us off, please.
Ngā mihi o te tauhou, ngā mihi nui ki a koe. Tūtaua mai I runga, tūtaua mai I raro, tūtaua mai I roto, tūtaua mai I waho, kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tai.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next I would like to call for apologies, which I appear to have none, so we'll move on. Any declarations of interests, councillors? There appear to be none, thank you. We have no urgent items that have come through the CE or myself, but are there any minor matters that we'd like to discuss today, councillors? I haven't heard of any, and there appear to be none. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 5 on our agendas, please, councillors. These are the presentations from our capital delivery team, and these will, there's 3 presentations today on 3 of the major capital projects that we have underway at council here. I might just ask Stavros to give a quick overview about our capital delivery team, what their purpose is, and how this reporting process back into council is going to happen over the next triennium. So I'll hand over to Stavros. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morena tatu katoa. Just a quick refresher. The Council has a very extensive infrastructure baseline. Just remind elected members that our general infrastructure and property portfolio has a replacement value somewhere in the region of $2.5 to $3 billion. And obviously, those assets from time to time need enhancement, augmentation to either meet our current and future demands, or also to meet and address new regulations as they occur. So while the main body of the infrastructure and property group are focused in maintaining what we've got at an appropriate level, we also, as an organization, decided to set up a dedicated team to steward and navigate major capital projects. Major capital or significant projects are projects that got significant impact on the functionality of the community and our services, but also carry significant financial risk because you as elected members investing significant amounts on behalf of the community into those projects. And therefore, we did set up a capital delivery team that is centered and focused onto stewarding and managing those projects up to the level that they are completed and ready for operation. At that point in time, those assets, new assets, are handed over to the operations team for long-term stewardship. So the purpose of the delivery team, capital delivery team, as I said, is to project manage those activities that you have funded and to report regularly to you through project steering groups and through the committee here to update you as to the progress of these projects, the status and expectations of completion, any financial risks or any elements that are significant enough for elected members to be totally aware of them. Because as I said earlier, these are significant projects, multi-million dollars are invested into them, and eventually those capital items are becoming operational maintenance items and also attract significant long-term stewardship investment requirements. So to that effect, I think we start with, invite Dion Prinsloo and Elrond to start presenting the first project, which is the investment for growth. Have a seat there, Dion.
Actually, well, just before we kick off, I'll just get the right presentation up on the screen for us. Thank you. Councillors, you'll be aware that several of you will be sitting on project steering groups around this table and others on these projects. So you will have a bit of oversight or an insight into these projects already. This is just going to be a regular quarterly reporting session. We'll choose 2 or 3 projects each quarter to report on in full, and you get to ask the questions of the team who are in charge. And so I'd like to welcome Elrond McCarthy. He is our Capital Delivery Manager, so he manages this team in-house. And with him today is Dion Prinsloo, is that how I thank you, who is the Program Manager for the Infrastructure Investment for Growth Stormwater Program. So I'll hand it over to the team to present, and just to note that there will be a confidential section for this presentation later on. I'm signalling that I'd like to put that into confidential with the financials and those sorts of things. So for the moment, we'll hand it over to Elrond and Dion, and then you can ask your questions afterwards. So I'll hand it over to you. Thank you, team.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Previously, I'd been presenting on the IIG. Last year, we were fortunate to be able to employ Dion into the program manager role, and he's been overseeing not just the project managers delivering the work, but also the negotiations with NIF and our contractors and the like. So I'm here to support, but I'll hand over to Dion.
Good morning, everybody. I've been introduced, and welcome to this committee meeting. All right, on the first slide, there's a graphic that shows the projects that make up the IIG program of works. I think it's a familiar slide to everybody, and if we can just immediately go into the focus of the current period that we're in. And I think if we can frame this quarter up, it would be preparing ourselves and positioning ourselves to deliver this program uninterrupted after this quarter. So our focus in January and February was really on the project delivery plans, which is called the variation order, so it's an amendment of project delivery plans. Also our engagement piece of work that's currently sitting there, and then also strengthening our controls and embedding some of our fundamentals in our program. So what that looks like is we're currently sitting on a variation 3 with our funding agreement partner, NIF. That's been sitting there for just about a year, and we just recently, last week, got confirmation that we will have an engagement on Thursday, tomorrow, with NIF to progress negotiations on VO3 for that approval. That will immediately lead us into variation 4, where we will then start to frame up the project solutions, rebaseline our budgets and our dates to get it more to an advanced stage as we go through the planning and delivery of these projects going along. So we're going to rationalize that to confirm our viable stormwater solutions. How we're going to do that is we're going to engage with our consultants also, but we've introduced a cost consultant and an engineer with construction experience to try and lead us into benchmarking those costs and understanding our costs to date. Also to validate some of the estimates that we've been getting on these projects, testing those efficiencies and making sure that we value engineer and make sure that we provide the optimized solution for these projects, and also to get realistic budgets and delivery frameworks or dates and durations for these individual projects, and repackage that in VO4 and to refine just that project delivery plan for ourselves. The other piece of work is also currently the gifted reserves, which is a big part of the engagement piece. That process has started last year. It's now going into a new process where there's a memorandum of understanding that's going to be tabled for the parties. And that will determine our way forward on most of the central projects and the land use dependencies related to our projects in that sense. it unfortunately puts a bit of a damper on the progress of some of these pieces of work, and we're losing a bit of cadence on some of these projects at the moment. And also, it does not enable us to roll out our engagement plan on a wider front as we get more certainty on the gifted reserves. The other part that we're looking at is advancing our physical works procurement strategy to prepare ourselves for the future when we have to implement these projects. And that expression of interest has gone live to the market at the end of January. It's closing at the end of February, and we're currently following the contractors or the participants that will be obviously present their participation to get onto that panel. The other thing is strengthening our financial controls and just the controls in general, our project controls. With our finance business partner and our controls manager, there's been a process of cleaning up some of the commitments and the purchase orders to date, tightening up on what I call the procure to pay workflows to reduce our exposure and just give us a bit more certainty on project scopes, schedules, and embedding some fundamentals and controls to reduce our exposure to risk on that front. So leading us into next month, it will be all about establishing that certainty, securing those approvals that is required, and getting along with that engagement piece. And what that looks like is to get variation 4 then formally framed up so that we understand what we're going to be delivering, to review the findings from our consultants and implement that into our delivery systems and our controls on the projects. Finalizing the panel for the physical works contractors that we set out to do, and understanding the available resources and the capabilities of delivering these projects. And then on the back of the engagement with gifted reserves, take direction from that in progressing the projects going forward, and kick off our wider engagement plan through our Te Amarangi unit internally. So that concludes what we're currently doing in this space. Going into the Gantt chart, the Gantt chart is reflective of our current approved project delivery plan, which is variation 2. So it's a build-up of all of the projects that are listed in those milestones, or the milestones that are reflective in those individual projects. It contains of dates and certain milestones, and unfortunately it's not reflective to what we're actually working towards, because we're working towards VO3 already, and so we can understand that it doesn't necessarily reflect what we're currently doing. VO3 will ultimately then re-baseline that and variation 4 as we refine the delivery solutions and the durations and the dates for it. So it's going to be an emerging process, and it's going to change over time with the variation orders. With our engagement with the consultants, we are definitely looking at how we're going to be staging those, especially during the implementation part, how we can be staging those projects, make sure that we've got reasonable delivery dates set for that, so that when we set that in the ensuing variation orders, it's more refined and more reasonable durations and dates set for those deliveries of the individual projects. Just running through the projects from the top, it appears on that program that we are behind, and it's because some of the projects that are rolled up currently into PC2 area support is Mangakakai Dam and the PC2 dams with Linton Dam as well. and some of those projects are not progressing at this time, so we've halted on any works of that, whereas Linton Dam shows about 100%, but again, in Linton Dam, we've got the dam construction, we've got the spillway modification, and we've got the restoration plan, so it's all rolled up into that one project. Westo 6, it shows 100% on feasibility, but that project is very reliant on the developers piece over there, so there's currently a lot of conversation or engagement happening on how we dovetail with what we're doing and what they are doing, and so progressing that in future. Westo 7, we've gone through the feasibility stage. That's been tabled. It's been lagging behind, but again, Westo 7 is a project that's initially been scoped larger, and under VO3 that will be reduced, and those timeframes be refined for the eventual delivery of that project. Westo 8, and it's difficult to see on that screen, but Westo 8 has been removed under variation 3, the same with Central 8 and 9. So the two big ones for us at the moment is also then the Central projects, with Central 3 and 4 the most critical one at this time, and has been progressed the furthest. We are ahead of that schedule at the moment, but obviously we're losing a bit of cadence with that engagement piece running at the moment, together with a variation 3 that needs to be obviously concluded. The same with Central 5 and 6, which shows that we're on track and a bit ahead. We've progressed that piece of work as well. We currently concluded the feasibility stage. We headed into the prelim design stage, and we just recently received the draft preliminary design report, so it's still early days on that one. It's also subject to the engagement part of the works, and so we'll just be watching that closely. Yep.
And I kind of just, thank you, Dion, just a couple of minutes to remind elected members, because you're looking at terms like variation 3 and variation 4 and what all these things mean. So okay, just, in a broad terms, to remind everyone that, when you have entered into an agreement with the Crown to fund, the implementation of our stormwater master plan, they offered about $85 million, and there's some local funding going there. So the whole project is somewhere in the region of $130 million. The initial application for those funds was made on the basis of a concept master plan. And of course, that concept master plan developed further as detailed investigations have taken place, feasibility studies are undertaken, and as some projects moved ahead, some other projects had to be modified, and therefore we have asked the Crown to agree to modify the initial funding distribution of those funds. That's what the variations actually mean. And again, just to remind for all of us that the core purpose of all this program of works is to enable us to achieve two things. One is to protect the community from the flooding risks anticipated under the climate change for the 100-year event. We have been grateful and thankful to date have not suffered those consequences, but it's predicted in the future rainfall will continue to increase, and therefore we need to protect the community for that. The second element is that this council has an aspiration to create the capacity and capability for an additional 3,000 homes to be built in the central and western catchments. And in order to do that, we need to give assurance to the regulatory authorities that we have appropriate stormwater infrastructure systems to protect those properties and to mitigate the additional runoff generated by additional housing. So it just, I just wanted to clarify that again, because Dion is talking about the project implementation, but we should not lose sight about the big picture as to why we're doing that and what we're trying to achieve behind it. Thank you, Dion.
Thank you, Stavros. Is there anything further you'd like to add, team, before we move on to questions?
No, there's just another slide left.
And that's probably going to be for the last part of the...
No, it's just
lovely,
some of the project.
Madam Chair, I just wonder if I could ask a question before I lose it.
Yes.
Would you mind?
Councillor Rakatak.
Stavros, when you said that you went back to the government for a variation, was that the funding remained the same amount, but it was just the when and as and when that you went back to them for? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Councillor Waterhead. Yeah, the funding remains the same, but this is really because the initial funding was allocated to specific projects, and feasibility indicates some of these projects are not viable. We change our project, so the total amount of funding remains the same. We had an agreement with them to redistribute them to other projects that are more viable. Thank you.
Thank you. If you're comfortable, do you want to speak to the slide, or you?
Yep. So on that slide is just 3 of the focus projects at the moment, just to brief everybody of what's been going on those projects at the moment. On the top left corner, picture number 1 is Linton Dam, and Linton Dam has been delivered by the infrastructure department, and it's been brought into the IIG because feasibility showed that we get a lot of benefits from modification of the spillway, and so the project, the dam construction has reached final completion. The next stage now is to do the spillway modification. There's been a slight delay with the procurement of materials from the contractor side, but indications are that implementation or the installation of that modification will be done before the end of February. The last piece of work on the restoration, on the Linton Dam, is the restoration plan as a consent condition, and that restoration plan now needs to be workshopped and prepared before the actual restoration works in the wetland area will continue. There's currently a dispute in process on the Linton Dam construction, and Stavros will provide us with just an update on that dispute.
Thank you, team. Anything further on the slide?
Yeah. I just wanted to add again to refresh elected members. What you see there, what you see Central 3 and 4 and the Central 5 and 6. The overarching objective here is simple. In the Lower Utuhina, the channel is under capacity. For many, many years, the Lower Utuhina channel has become constrained, and it does not meet the flow capacity that's set up by the Bay of Plenty Regional Council's asset management plan for a number of reasons. So all these programs of work in the 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, it aims to divert as much stormwater as possible away from the central area that flows towards the Utuhina channel and to the east, towards the Sanitarium Reserve, where you have more capacity to discharge stormwater instead of overloading the Lower Utuhina. So these are difficult and challenging projects because you work inside existing residential areas, existing utilities. Every road underneath has got telecommunications, gas pipelines, water supplies, sewage pipes. So they are challenging projects. However, the team are working diligently to identify constraints, feasibility studies, geotechnical investigations, consenting, and so on. And the overarching objective here is to reduce pressure onto the Lower Utuhina to allow us to mitigate flood risk. So that is where we are at this point in time. And one of the areas, as you see above that, in the area of 3 and 4 is actually connecting the residential area just above Pererica Street and below Pererica Street towards the Curau Park that flows into Utuhina in a way that the flows become more efficient and more controlled instead of flooding areas like, for example, the Kmart area or the Maita 10 or those properties there. So that's the overall objective, is to enhance the flow capacity but also reduce the flooding potential risk of these properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Stavros. Thank you, team. Is there anything else you'd like to add at the end before questions?
No.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Good to be back. Thank you for your presentation, gents. Just looking at Curau Park, I notice, to be honest, the graphics are quite hard to read on these slides, so it is challenging for my old eyes. I see it's got stormwater pipes, open drains, and detention ponds are the images, I guess you could say, attached to that. You talked about it, the plans being on track but delayed due to some of the negotiations that are going on. Then further on the graph, it talks about the design, consent and tender, which was to be completed by 31st of January, and that's done. But then 19th of February 2027 is when that's all to be completed, is that correct? Then the construction begins on the 17th of June 2027, with completion hoped to be 19th of February 2028. Is that correct? Just checking that I'm reading it correctly, that's all.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have those dates now in front of me, and I tried to skip back there.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So one question that I did have linking the Central 3 and 4, Stavros just alluded to the Utahina channel enhancements. That itself is not listed anywhere in progress or detailed in this report. Is that because that's well down the track?
Yes, the Utahina is being introduced as a new project or as a new solution in Variation 3, and it will subsequently then come online as a project, yeah.
Okay, and would that be included in the funding package?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. And as Dion said, this is probably an overlay from previously, and now that we're moving into Variation 3 and have been approved, this chart will look somewhat different, if I understand rightly. Yes, Elrond, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could just add to that, and apologies, councillors, I probably should have set the table prior to Dion coming up. So just some history around the variation order. So we began conversations around doing a variation to the programme once we realised certain projects weren't going to pass through the feasibility stage, and that was back in November 2024. There's been a reshuffle in central government that has caused delays to that. We've proceeded cautiously at risk so that we continue to actually work on the programme. So we're actually, what you're seeing is data that's between both programmes. We're actually on a call with NIF tomorrow, where we'll get the formal confirmation of what the new programme is going forward. And in terms of VO4, it's not going to take as long. So part of the settlement with NIF around VO3 was that rather than go into government for approval, that could actually be agreed unilaterally lower down the line. So by the time we come back to do the next update, you'll get the reset information. I also note the point about the graphics, and what we'll do going forward is provide A3 size full-scale attachments to the packs for you to be able to properly review. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just one comment I would like to make on that is that if this is in the public agenda, they won't be able to read it either. So while it would be nice to have this for us, for the public's benefit going forward, is there any way we can improve the quality of what is posted so that the public can actually see it too?
I'll let Elrond answer that.
And so thank you through you, Chair. Yeah, absolutely. So we have information publicly available on our website, and we can ask the governance team to ensure that there are links to the actual electronic versions of the documents in full resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lee, you had a question.
I did, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. And through you, thank you, Dion, for your first report in Council. Welcome to the Chamber. You mentioned in passing that there is a memorandum of understanding being discussed or negotiated with the Pukira Arawhara Trust. I presume that's going to be presented to Council for approval?
I'll just hand that over to Stavros. Do you want to answer that one?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The MOU that the officers have alluded to, it relates to the designation of the Kirau Park as a gifted reserve. The Pukira Arawhara Trust, which obviously represents the interest of Ngāti Whakaui in that area, rightfully said, well, if we're going to use a Kirau Park in addition to a recreational reserve, we would like to see the bigger picture here. that involves not just the Rotorua Lakes Council, but also the activities and obligations of Bay of Plenty Regional Council. So at official level, we are working, as I said earlier, with the Bay of Plenty Regional Council on the Lower Utuhina area, because the Lower Utuhina is a managed asset by the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, and obviously whatever we need to do there is an asset control and under the stewardship of the Regional Council. But also we are working with the Bay of Plenty Regional Council to explore the possibilities of better management of lake levels, because the level of, of the lakes got a consequential impact into stormwater management in the area. So the Pokerua Father Trust asked us to have a collective approach between officers and institutions to say, well, stormwater is not really constrained into one particular geographical area. We all have a role to play into that, and therefore we have an MOU to say we, Pokerua Father Trust, is stewards of their gifted reserves, because that's their function. Rotorua Lakes Council is the owner of the urban stormwater system, and the Bay of Plenty Regional Council is the owner and responsible entity for streams and lake levels, are working together under a memorandum of understanding to address all the components of the system that falls into that area. So it does not involve an MOU as an organization with Pokerua Father Trust. It's an MOU between officers and officials to make sure that we are collectively working in that kind of direction.
Thank you, Stavros.
So, do I take it from your detailed answer that the answer to my question is no?
You heard the answer, Councillor.
We're happy to share that, the MOU, but we don't think that the MOU requires a council's authorization or adoption. Council only. It's a memorandum of understanding about operational collaboration, and that's what we could do.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Is there any further questions? Councillor Sanford.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, thank you very much for the report. I just wanted a clarification. So, VO3, you're going to find out tomorrow if that's approved.
Thank you, Councillor, for you, Chair. So we've had confirmation that the VO3 has been approved. Appreciate that that's some 14 months ago now that we started conversations, and things have progressed even more since then. So what we're talking about is actually wrapping up some further amendments to reflect our better understanding now the projects are through the feasibility stage. So we'll have those conversations and then completely reset the programme in one go rather than bring new VO3, VO4.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Timara Benfell.
Kia ora, thank you, Madam Chair. You noted, Dion, the Gantt chart was out of date. Could you provide when councillors might be able to have an updated version?
Through you, Chair. Councillor, yes, like Elrond has just alluded to, we're going to be having that discussion with NIF tomorrow. So we'll prepare it as soon as possible after that communication and update it in accordance with VO3 approval.
Just a second question through you, Madam Chair. Could you provide, for the benefit of councillors, a little bit of an overview of what the engagement and consultation process will look like, and what the team's collaboration with TOU looks like? Just a more of a detailed overview as to what that part looks like.
So there's been communications with the Tiamarangi unit to set up that engagement plan, and all along we've been saying that we don't want to engage on project level at first because of the fatigue that might set in, and because we're dealing with a lot of projects across the program, we're trying to spearhead that to more of a program level approach, and through the TAU then filter that down to the different iwi. So currently in that engagement plan, the Tiamarangi unit has been engaging with the different iwi and understanding what it is that they want to be engaged on, and created that engagement plan with the following actions that will flow from that. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, thank you again, Dion. Just if either of you could explain, looking at the, I believe it's map 4 on that, no, sorry, 2, graph, image number 2 on the central 3 and 4 concept. Does that say the skate park to be removed? Current one, obviously.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, the skate park, from my understanding, will move from that location to Kira Park.
Correct. Thank you.
That appears to be all the questions. Thank you, team. Just wondering if you are able to circulate that updated Gantt chart when it becomes available. I'm not sure whether it will be, if it's in the next few weeks, that would be helpful, but if it's closer to our next meeting, then that's, to your discretion, but that would be helpful for councillors to understand the change in the program.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing to be aware of is that Gantt chart is currently, because we're in the early stages of the construction project, that's reflective of our milestone claims for funding from government. As the projects go into the execution phase, you'll get far more detailed progress reports for each individual project, but that comes when we're in the actual construction phase, and again, we'll make sure those are circulated monthly.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, team. Thank you, Dion, for your first presentation. I appreciate that. You're welcome to leave, and we'll move on to the next item, councillors. Thank you. So, Elron, probably you can stay seated. And the item 5.2 is the Tarawera Sewage Scheme Stage 2 project update. And I'd like to invite Ian Gray to join Elrond at the table. Ian Gray is the Program Manager for Tarawera, and I will hand over to you to overview your presentation. Thank you.
Cool, good morning and thank you. You will see my face here a little bit more regularly within my program. I have the wastewater treatment plant, for which we had our first steering group yesterday, so a couple of councillors on that, which was nice to step through. Also have the recovered water project that we have a working group underway at the moment, so also a couple of 3 councillors. So you will see me up here a touch more regularly, which I hope is a good thing. Try not to ramble too much, but I'll walk you through really quickly a little bit of the back end. So we're presenting today on Tarawera 2, but it follows close on the heels of Tarawera 1, which was the trunk main coming through. So Tarawera 2 is the picking up of all the properties and hooking up of what is being tabled as the 408 properties into that trunk main, bringing their sewage back to our main wastewater treatment plant in town, which is currently being upgraded. So Tarawera 2 is picking up of all of those properties, install of new small package pump stations, decommissioning of the septic tank and commissioning thereof. So I take on board Councillor Patterson's comments on the graphics. This is meant to be super high level. There are little green dots in there, approximately 68, which are the fully completed sites. It's more just to show you the extent of the scheme of the 408. There are 408 properties represented. Some of those big yellow ones they're just single land holdings. What actually drags a property in is its proximity to the new trunk main of approximately 60 metres or it being within 200 metres of the lake. So that kind of a very broad parameters. I'm probably going to talk more through themes today, and within the question time you can drill in a little bit if I miss anything. So that's what the graphic in the middle represents. We have been really strongly focused because it's not necessarily a complex project, or each unit is not necessarily complex. The complexity comes in 408 installs. If you're a private landowner getting a new pump station and decommissioning your septic tanks, its own little project. Our complexity is in coordinating landowner approvals, getting it through building consent, resource consent, and packaging those in batches and getting them through and keeping the whole thing running. There were some complexities at the tail end of stage 1, so that moved our contract out a little bit. So we've had some follow-on costs on that I'll deal with later. Our focus has really been on getting good cadence and hitting the install numbers with our contractor, who's now working, and you'll see in some of the later slides, now working really efficiently, got some good systems. We've overcome some little judder bars on the way, so it's working really nicely. So the focus has been largely on getting what I'll call the easy installs underway and getting a lot as fast as we can. Our focus in this next period is starting to move, now that we've got this nice cadence with the contractor and with the community out there, really good buy-in, is starting to tackle some of those more complex sites. Some of the potential legal challenges on the odd individual site, some of those sites where we may need an easement or something, some of the more complex resource consenting sites. Every single site requires a resource consent due to the depth of the units. Some of the sites actually require a slightly more comprehensive resource consent. So some of those are moving into our next phase now, where we'll look at the packaging of the project and whether or not there's a natural demarcation of that was Tarawera 2 for the easy sites, of which it's looking around 370, 380, and whether or not there's a benefit to repackaging those trickier sites due to efficiency of the contract that we've got running. Once we're at that point, that plan will be shared with the committee. Take on board the uniformity of what we're doing, and I'll just walk you through the graph, but certainly a work on of, as I've listened, and the capital team, is full uniformity across what we're doing. So I take that on board, and you'll see that Aaron smacked me on the hand a couple of times as I've prepared this, and I take that on board, and we're working towards full uniformity across the capital plan. So there's only little tweaks, but that is a takeaway for us, and it's easy to work on. So the top is a super compressed program, not quite as nasty as Dion's to look at. The takeaways there, the construction stages, these are just an internal separable portions. A and B, and again, these are very movable. We share this, but they're actually very movable because the project's quite dynamic as we're walking through the easy sites and the more tricky sites, so the whole thing's adjusting the whole time. So A and B represent around that sort of 370, 380. It's presenting a touch higher than that, but it's probably going to sit more in that realm. And then what we're tabling up there, which is an internal separable portion, C and D, are where we're kind of tabling that. I don't want to call it a project reset, but we will look at how we tackle those harder sites and whether or not we want to pull as many into what we're doing now as possible, but it'll be, is there an efficiency to actually recutting the project a touch? And we're starting to have those thoughts now. Again, don't be alarmed by the practical completion steps in red. That's an internal thing. We've got 408 individual units. Our cadence, we're trying to get through 34 installs a month. We're tracking above that in general. Creates a complexity as 34 drop into our asset register here internally. So that's more just between the PM and I. We're looking at how those are dropping in efficiency. So the red isn't an alarming thing. It's more just an internal thing for me to look at with the project team. You'll see the lower graph there is the construction progress against target. The target obviously drops away December, January due to partial months. The orange, which looks a touch below our target, since I produced this, it actually came in the month end, it hit 24. So we're tracking above what our target is. We've had some good internal discussions of, do we push harder and go faster? Do we work with the contractor to try and get more resource? We think we're at a nice balance at the moment, because there's a balance between being able to do locality plans. I'll explain a little bit more of these a little bit later. Can we get all of those planning stages done and load for the contractor to go in an efficient manner? And we think our targets are about right. So we have challenged ourselves internally. Is there a benefit to speeding up? We've decided what we're doing, which is projecting for a practical completion date around that October. We believe we're tracking a touch ahead of that, but we think we're probably at a comfortable point with the way we're tracking at present. So that's the bottom graph. We're in, on, or around, or a touch above our targets. There's lots in here, and I share it, and it'll be interesting during question time. 1, 2, and 3 are the planning and design phases. That first one, which is the locality plans, that's an interesting one. The green and the orange, that shows we've got a whole heap of these where we've been able to make contact, landowners are happy, we've loaded them, we're good to go. That's actually really heartening, like that's actually a really high percentage. 1, 2, and 3 are planning. 4 and 5 are the construction phases. So that's when it's popped out and we're good to go. So we're all at different stages through there. And then the remainder are the closeout phases for us. And the last one on the right is fully complete, which is as-built are done, code of compliance is issued, and it's been handed to our internal asset owner. And they are dropping out sequentially as we go. The right-hand graph, again, it's really high level, and it's just a little bit of a cut to show the complexity. If you go back to the far left-hand graph, kind of that grey red area, and that's what I said at the start. Some of them, a very small number, landowners are not happy and don't want to join. There's a number of tricky resource consents. There's a whole bunch of minor things in there that are creating challenges to us. So that is the work ahead, is to look at all of those and put some more energy. As I said at the start, our energy has really been on getting the bulk through, and it hasn't been on the focus there of the trickier sites. So we're only just stepping into that phase now. And the next catch-up, a lot more granularity and process will have occurred through there, and any outstanding challenges or successes. I'd have to say through January, one of the project team had really good success. That grey area was quite a bit larger than that, but she managed to put some real time into phoning up and getting out there, and we actually reduced that really significantly. So that was fantastic, just getting the bandwidth to put some real energy in there. So a month and a half ago, that looked not far worse, but we've made real good progress on that, which is very heartening. This slide probably could have started at the start. In presenting this, I make a whole heap of assumptions. So this is really just a very fast schematic on what the systems actually are. Of course, each home out there has a septic tank at the moment. We're dropping in a low-pressure system. We're hooking into the trunk main. We're decommissioning the septic tank, which is pump out and fill in, and then we hook up new electric on each house. Then we commission it, and then hopefully they work really well in perpetuity. And council take over the asset of 408 pump stations. So come into our asset system. And the left hand is just an image that I took off Google just to show really high level schematic as to what it looks like. I'm pretty sure all the Tarawera homes do not look like that, so it's very indicative. Every single installation is different. It talks to a touch of the complexity around preparing a tender for 408. As I say, if you're an individual homeowner, you get a contractor to come out, they'd measure the distance from the road to your unit, they'd look at the number of tanks, they'd give you a price for the install, they'd look at the electric, so you'd get a detailed breakdown. To enable this project to go, a bunch of assumptions were made around, at the tender time it was actually 455, I think. So a lot of assumptions had to be made around what 455 installs would be. Through the August rate strike process, it was brought down to the actual deliveries 408. So this just shows you a little bit. They're not cool images, like the museum gets really cool images, the wastewater treatment plant gets really cool images. These are individual property owners, which 408 is a really good outcome, but each individual one's actually, they don't look that cool, but contractors doing a really good job. My understanding, they've had really good buy-in from the local community, there's good happiness. I guess there's a full understanding. Everyone likes, they're all being done on private property, so the onus is there, a person with a rake really tidying up, it's under people's clotheslines and things, so that's where the complexity comes of we are interrupting 408 individuals' lives as we go, and it is significant to get on someone's private property, so we're aware of that, but my understanding we've had good feedback as to the actual product which is being delivered, and that's what we're seeing. So that's it. I did struggle to get really cool photos, but that's the best that I could do.
Thank you, Ian. I appreciate the photos. I think they're pretty cool anyway, and thank you for filling in some of the stuff that's not necessarily in the papers, which is our impact and our benefit to the community as well. So appreciate that. And I'll just hand over to Stavros if you've got any comments you'd like to add.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. For everyone, just a quick summary of where we're with that, refresh our minds, is that a decision has been made at the request of the community to enact a reticulation scheme for Tarawera. In the words of the High Court judge in December, who reminded some people in the audience that remember the objective here is to protect the Lake Tarawera from the adverse effects of sewage flowing into the lake. So I think that's the overall objective for that, and it's quite important to note that to date about 200 properties out of the 400 properties have been installed. One of the evidence of that work that people at various stages said was nothing wrong with septic tanks. However, in the process of installing the new grinder pumps, a significant number of properties were found where septic tanks had no bottom on them. So basically whatever was going out of the sewage was going straight through the ground and into the lake. So that proves the validity of the quality of water improvements and the rationale behind that, behind that process. As I said, with the 50% of the properties installed and the current rate of installation roughly about 35 per month, would expect completion within the next 6 to 7 months, and obviously the team will reporting regular progress in that kind of direction. So we do expect over the next 2-3 months, let's say about April, May, we're going to have a very good fix as to how many properties will be completed and by when. We do anticipate that it is possible that by July, August, we may find that 90% of the properties have been completely installed and connected. There might be 10 or 15 properties that for one reason or another reason there are some delays behind that. I expect that we'll bring a report to you recommending to close off the project once we get a 90-95% completion and that closes stage 2. The reason for that is that we collectively have to make some decisions, is that if you have, let's say, 10 or 15 properties are slow to respond and slow to collaborate, the contracts, we will incur additional contractual costs because the contractor will not have the mass of installations in front of them and therefore have to go back in drips and drabs. And the question is that the average cost of installation will increase, and then we as a council have to decide whether we absorb that cost or create a new rate for those delayed properties. We don't know the answer to that yet, but we expect to come back to you, in due course and take it from there. And again, some comments happening into the community from time to time and say, well, we're connecting another community into our wastewater treatment plant. Which upgrade at the moment are going to put more pressure on the wastewater treatment plant. Just for your knowledge, once the Tarawera scheme is fully reticulated and installed and connected, will contribute just over 1% of the capacity of the treatment plant. And remember, we are almost doubling the capacity of the treatment plant at the moment. So it's cost effective, it's efficient, and it's also secure that septic tanks will no longer contribute to pollution of Lake Tarawera, and I think the team is doing a great job, and the contractor receives a significant positive feedback from the community. 100 and almost 200 properties installed, and I have 0 complaints about the contractor, the installation. Usually, my average inbox email is about 250 a day, and a large number of them comes because of complaints people have about various assets. But for Tarawera, I received 0 complaints about the installation and the reinstatement or the collaboration we received. So good to the team, and that's where we are at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Stavros. Anything further to add, team, before we go to questions? Thank you very much. Councillors, questions to Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your report, Ian. Just a question regarding the closure process. It says we're expected that to happen in November of 2027. If I recall, the wastewater treatment plant is supposedly around a similar time frame. Is there any risk that if the treatment plant is not ready to take the new, even though I think you talked to only 1%, is there any risk if it's not ready?
I will answer that. I'm going to check the numbers here. The closure of this project will be the latest November 26, not 27. Maybe they have to come and check the dates there.
Yeah, from a project level, closure for us is full internal closure. So we're hitting practical completion, all units in that kind of October this year. For us, it's project closure, which is we've been through defect liability, which is typically a year, and we've actually closed it out internally, and the project's done. So that tail is more an internal process thing rather than the units. So
the physical installation of the project will be no later than September, October this year.
This year.
The treatment plant upgrade will be completed exactly at the same time, September this year too. So even if it wasn't, 1% we still got capacity in the current treatment plant. So it's zero problem with regards to capacity of the treatment plant. But the two things will happen concurrently.
So there's no risk?
No.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maxwell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ngā mihi o te tauhou kia korua. You mentioned 480 homes out there. There were a lot of figures, but did I get it right? 408?
408, that's a project you have adopted, yeah.
Right. And then October, you mentioned, is a crucial date or critical date, and then Stavros added there, hopefully 90% September, October, you hope to have there. How crucial is that date in October, and how many homes do you think will be completed in October?
Through you, Chair. At the moment, we're tracking, and it's very simplistic, but I'm calling them the simple sites, and it's tracking towards 380. We're tracking towards sort of August-ish this year will be closed. That leaves that tail of 20. And I say it's not necessarily critical. The project's actually tracking really nicely. It's more the challenge will be internally around for those final 20-ish, and we'll come back to you in the next few months around what that actual number is. The challenge for us is how do we recut the project. So it's not necessarily critical, but it's how are we going to do that and what does that actually look like. So 380 delivered, working, the treatment plant's ready, that's fantastic. It's more an internal process around how are we going to recut, what are the challenges and how are we going to get those over the line, and then how do we reconstruct the current contract and what are the prices for. So it's not, it's just more how we recut it. So I have no fears for that. It's more just how are we going to do it, what does it look like, what's our approval process for restructuring the project at that point. Does that answer?
Thank you. Councillor Timara Benfell?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I note in the presentation, so we've got five objections and 6 that we have no response from. And I note if we go a couple of slides back, just on the map, the big yellow Tarawera map, the majority of those larger blocks are Māori land blocks, mostly Rotomahana Parekarangi blocks. Are they reflective of the general vibe of positive towards the process or engaging in the process, or are they part of that no response / objection? What does that look like?
Through you, Chair, I'm not sure on that. I'll have to get back to you.
Can I answer that? My apologies, I'm stepping in here. I would like to remind elected members that one of the drivers for the general community, including Whenua, Mana Whenua land trusts up there, were supported over the reticulation. It was that would create infrastructure, thus enabling land blocks, Maori land blocks to be able to develop. I'm aware of at least two of them that are in the process of constructing consenting proposals for that, and obviously they are keen and happy that there is an infrastructure available to them to connect to it. The scheme, the main phase, stage one of the scheme, with the main trunks and the pump stations, have been designed for 550 at least properties, so therefore it's got capacity to connect into them, obviously subject to the consent proposals, those land trusts, land blocks, would develop from that. So none of the, let's call it, resistant properties, to my knowledge, are Maori blocks. Those properties will, and I won't go into detail about them. The reality is that once we get to the stage where we have, let's say, 10 properties having connected, then the council will start utilizing regulatory authorities, to start to enforce it.
Thank you. That appears to be all the questions. Thank you, team, for your presentation. Appreciate that. And we'll look forward to seeing the update in the next few months. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 5.3, councillors, which is the museum construction project update. And for this one, we'll invite the project manager, Will Bamford, to come and join Elrond at the table. And I will hand over for some cool pictures. Thank you.
Morena koutou, ko Bamford takuanga. So works on the construction project on site commenced in July 2024. We're looking at a completion date in mid-September this year, so that's roughly 110 weeks, and we're in week 80, so we're just over 70% of the way through progress. How the works have commenced through the building is from an underground basement foundation perspective. We've worked from the southern area, so in your picture on the right, your zone 1 through to your zone 6, so all the foundations are complete in zones 1 through to 4, and this week we're pouring the last foundation in zone 5. Following that, the HVAC services in the basement have been coming through, and we're currently pushing through zone 3 into zone 4 with HVAC services, and then they'll follow into zone 5 once we're complete and connect into the zone 6 service room. Inside, we have started in the same manner as well, and we have moved through, and the focus of the work is currently in zones 3, 4 and 5, with zones 1 and 2 predominantly complete. Externally, we went in the opposite direction. We did that to minimise the sort of structural disturbance to the building, so we weren't impacting on the whole fabric of the building from top to bottom at one go. The north works are complete, as you can see in the picture above you, and the scaffolding is now on the southern and central zones. We are aiming for that external work to be complete in May, and then that will come down and we'll see the full exterior of the building. The structural works are, as you can see in some of the words here, they are rapidly finalising, and now the finishing works are our large focus. So each week you go in and we're starting to line walls, and the building and the spaces are starting to look like they will be used for the museum. From a program perspective, like I said, we're sort of at that 72% mark. It was a bit less when I put this together a couple of weeks ago. We are a couple more weeks additional than what we had aimed for when we commenced in July 2024. From a program perspective, as we have 7 months to go in the project, we're now starting to really finalise the intricacies and dependencies between the program. So you can see some changes in this Gantt chart where before we had a lot of the work areas completing at the same time, and now some have pulled forward because it's not realistic for them all to finish on the same day. The focus is from a program perspective at the moment is working to our scaffold removal dates, both externally, as I just discussed in May, and then internally throughout the zones of the building. That's important from a cost perspective, as scaffolding is expensive, and also from a finishing perspective, because we cannot put floors and wall finishing details in place until that scaffolding is removed. Have a few pictures here up of progress. So in Zone 1, we have one of the corridors in, I think it's under Zone 4. And for those of you that may have been in the building previously or seen other photos, the scaffolding has come out now, and that work is being complete. Picture 2 is up on the central turret, so that is above the main entrance of the building. There is lead flashing work going on to protect that area where we had quite a bit of water egress previously, and we had decay to the structure, so there's been a big focus on weathertight flashings in that area. It's roughly 30 metres above the ground. Image 3 is taken from the doorway between the foyer entrance looking to the cafe area, and this is our key heritage zone. We've pulled down the hanging ceiling to now open up the gabled ceiling, which you can see above you, and the cornice details. So from a heritage perspective, we haven't seen that area of the building since I think the mid-70s, and it's a big focus of this area is to illustrate the original features of a building as designed by the architects in the early 1900s. Zone 4 is photo 4 is on the eastern side of level 1 of the mezzanine in the foyer, and that's our new conference space. Above it is picture 5, and that shows some of the HVAC equipment that has been hoisted up using the scaffolding and brought through the floor and is sitting roughly 20 metres above the ground. So logistically, this building is very challenging as to how we get equipment through and up. And this HVAC equipment is very important because it helps preserve the tonga inside the building and to enable the Rotorua Museum to get loan exhibitions from around the world. We need to be able to show and improve the quality of the air to ensure that we're not damaging any tonga that is on point to us. Picture 6 is in that Zone 3 area too, looking over the jetty wall. So if you can imagine standing at that eastern side of the museum looking out towards over government gardens of Blue Baths and Council, and a little bit of a dark picture, but there's a lot of work that's occurred on that wall to strengthening it and hold it up from falling down. So we've pinned it back onto the building's main shear walls, which connect down into the foundations. So yeah, on the whole, I just want to acknowledge our consultants and contractors that have been working on the project. We're hitting that last third. There's been a lot of challenges through the project that everyone is addressing really well, and the project is in a good place moving forward to completion, practical completion in September. If you have any part-time.
Thank you, Will. And I'd just like to acknowledge your stewardship of this project too, because it's been complex and continues to be so. But yeah, we're seeing that you're managing to navigate that space really effectively with our contractors and our consultants and the team on the ground. So thank you very much. Questions, councillors? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report, Will. Just a question regarding, did you say May the scaffolding would be coming down? That's the goal?
Correct, that's the goal.
So would that mean that all of the plastic on the outside would come down as well?
Correct.
Wow, that's impressive. And just looking at who is the company that is doing the scaffolding?
So the main contractor is Watson Hughes, and the subcontractor for the scaffolding is Grieve Scaffolding.
Greaves, are they a local company?
My understanding is that they're not local, they come from out of town.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, in the image collection there, you have graphic 5 that shows the HVAC system. Is that up in the void above the mezzanine floor?
Yes, it's above the conference room. So if you can look at image 4, and I'll see if I can use the highlighter. There is a gap in the ceiling here. Yep. So that's the access hatch that the scaffolding came up to, and at the bottom left of the image 5 is where that HVAC came up and then got shifted to the side. And so there's units to the north and south of that access hatch.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Got it.
Any further questions, councillors? Just one from me, actually. Photo 3. You can see that hallway with the vaulted ceiling. There's going to be skylights along there as well, is that correct, Will, or is it going to...
Yes, that's correct. So the pieces of ply protection that you can see throughout the ceiling, I'm just trying to see if I can get up. The pieces of ply which you can see are protecting the skylights.
Awesome, thank you, because that was previously we had HVAC systems and all sorts of things running through there, didn't it? So it's a marked improvement. Councillor Peterson.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I've meant to ask this one. Can you just remind us, please, where is the plastic going once it's finished?
So 95% of it gets reused, and that can't be reused is recycled through a company in Lower Hutt, and then that gets utilised for production of certain plastic goods.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, team. Appreciate the update on the museum. It looks like everything's going very well. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the next part of our agenda, and I'd like to suggest that we move into public excluded, and that I have 3 items that, for consideration in this session, the public excluded session. They are 6.1, the Infrastructure Investment for Growth Program Update. The 6.2 is Tarawera Sewage Scheme Project Update, and 6.3, the Museum Construction Project Update. The reason for withholding this information is to enable Council to carry out without prejudice or disadvantage commercial activities. Do I have a mover and a seconder to move into public excluded, please? That's Councillor Maxwell and Councillor Wang. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you, councillors. And I will give us time for the live stream to be turned off and for us to get ready for the next part of the session. Thank you.